Hello, welcome to Dining with Dan and Becky. Tonight we're having dinner at our house, and I'm glad that you could join us. So, what we're going to be doing tonight first is making rolls. I can't filch the ends anymore, so it's time that I learned how to make them properly, as if I could already. So let's go ahead and get our roll dough out, our pan, and we will pan these out. I haven't shown you how to do it in a while. If you're out shopping and you have a few extra bucks, you need to invest in some flour sack towels. I have 15 of these, and I use them only for food. I cover my bread with them. If I'm doing a pumpkin roll, I use it to roll the pumpkin bread in. If I'm doing jelly rolls, German chocolate rolls, anything like that, I use my food towels. Okay, flour. All right, we're going to sprinkle our surface rather liberally with the same kind of flour you use to make whatever dough you're working on. We used all-purpose in our dough, so we're going to use all-purpose to work with. All right, now, first thing you want to do is punch your dough down to get rid of the excess air. And then we're going to turn it out on our flour. Okay. And then we're going to sprinkle a little bit on the top. Now, with this flour recipe, you do not have to knead it. However, you do have to keep it smooth. You need to lengthen the gluten fibers in your flour, which will enable it to be more flaky, and it will also allow it or encourage it to rise better. So, now we're going to do our cloverleaf rolls. So the first thing you want to do is spray them in your muffin pan. And then we're just going to start working it. Now, I promise you, one day we're going to do nothing but breads, and I will show you how to make this again, and then I'll show you some of the different types of breads that you can make using this. Now, you want to fill your muffin tin completely full. Okay. Now, the recipe I'm using only makes 12. At the end, the recipe we use makes 96. On a Sunday, it's not unusual for us to make, let me see, 32 batches of bread like this. And that's just for Sunday service. Now, you don't want your surface being jagged, so turn it. Now, again, do not knead your flour into this, because the more you knead it, the tougher it's going to be. You're going to make 3 1.5 to 2 inch size balls and just put them in your pan. Oh, this is getting sticky. So what I do, I just sprinkle some more on the top of it. Again, do not knead it in. Now, it's probably going to take a good half hour, maybe even 45 minutes for this to raise enough. You want to cover it and put it in a warm place, and you know it. I cover it with my flour sack cloth or my food towel. Now, if you don't have exactly 12 rolls out of this, you've made your balls just a little bit too large. And I did with this one, I did with that one and that one, but that's all right. I'm just going to put this whole thing in there. All right, and there we are. Now you want this to raise until your rolls are actually touching each other. If you put them in the oven before they have raised enough, your rolls are going to be heavy. It's the yeast working that incorporates air into your dough that makes it light. So I'm going to cover this with our food towel. And I am going to put it back on the stove, which is turned off, but I've got a heat lamp on it. And that way it will raise. When they're touching each other, we will pop them in the oven. Okay, give me a minute to clean up my mess, and we will start our next dish. Okay, welcome back. Tonight's menu for Dan and his guests is going to consist of a tossed salad, chicken delicious, macaroni and cheese, sauteed broccoli and almonds, and I put it down this way instead of broccoli almondine because Dan teases me about it, and then berries on a cloud. If you've never had berries on a cloud, it's an unusual dessert that's just absolutely delicious. Okay. Our next dish that we're going to be preparing is our chicken delicious. Now, I had never heard of this before, but you all know by now that my sister Donna and my mother Natalie and I go to secondhand stores such as Union Mission, Goodwill, consignment shops, and while they're looking for things, I go through their book section, and I found a real old book that had this recipe in it, so I thought I would try it tonight. It consists of boneless chicken, and you can use thighs or breasts, sweet and spicy French dressing. Well, it's such an old cookbook that I couldn't find that, so I used Catalina. 2 tablespoons of dried minced onions, and 2 cubes of beef bouillon. Now okay, now we're going to go ahead and prepare our marinade, get our chicken soaking in it, and then we'll put it in the refrigerator, and after it's marinated about an hour, we'll go ahead and bake it off. I hope that my change that I made in it this time doesn't mess it up, but you just never know how it goes. And welcome back. Let's get started on the marinade for our chicken delicious. All right, I've got almost 6 pounds of chicken here. So I took the recipe and multiplied it by 4. So I have 2 cups of the sweet and tangy French dressing, 8 tablespoons of the minced dried onions, and this is the beef bouillon that I put hot water in to dissolve. So I'm going to add that to it. When you go out to a restaurant and they're having something such as prime rib and they have au jus with it, well, they can buy an au jus base to make it with, or they can make it with a combination of beef and chicken using 2 or 3 parts beef and 1 part chicken, and then your water, and it tastes the same thing. So the fact that they put in beef in this marinade and then put it on chicken is going to make this have just a little bit of a taste of au jus. So we have that ready. Let's uncover this. And you can find at Walmart, some of the larger stores, 2-gallon Ziploc baggies, and that's what I use when I marinade. All right, here we are. I'm going to put the chicken in. Aren't these the biggest breasts, boneless, skinless, you have ever seen? My goodness gracious, and they're natural, they're organic, they have no preservatives in them, no antibiotics. They're 100% cage-free, And it makes you wonder how on earth the chickens could have lived for their breasts to be that large. Now we're going to take this and dump it on it and squish it around a little bit. Make sure every surface is covered. And then we're going to pop it back in the refrigerator and let it sit as long as we dare. You want to get every drop out. That really smells good, and I am about to make a mess. All right. Make sure it's sealed because you do not want this dripped all along the inside of your refrigerator. Okay, let me get a paper towel to clean that seal off. Okay, and there we are. A perfect seal. All right, now what you want to do is turn this, scrub it a little bit, make sure every surface is covered and sitting in the marinade. And you can marinate this anywhere from 1 to 2 to 6 hours if you want. Now, the longer you marinate it, the more flavor that chicken is going to absorb from the marinade. So, the choice is yours. Let me get this in the refrigerator, clean up my mess, and then we are going to start on the meringues for the berries on a cloud. All right, our next dish that we have to work on is the berries on a cloud. Now, Americans refer to the main part of this as a meringue. When my daughter went to Australia as an exchange student, her host mother would make them, and they were called pavlovas. Well, really, she bought them at the bakeries, and they were just beautiful. And before we did the feast at the inn, we did a taste of, okay? So we did a taste of seafood, a taste of Texas, a taste of Pennsylvania Dutch, a taste of New Orleans, and then when she came back from Australia, we did a taste of the South Pacific, and I did pavlovas, and they took me hours on top of hours on top of hours to do, and we only sold 3 of them, so I never made them again at the end. But we've made them off and on at the house, and the kids just love helping me do the dressing up of it, putting the berries on it, in other words, because it's such a fun, colorful thing. So the first thing you're going to do, whether you call it a meringue or you call it a pavlova, you're going to make a batch of meringue. Now you're going to need 4 egg whites, a cup of sugar, a teaspoon of vanilla, 2 teaspoons of cornstarch, and then the pint of heavy cream we will do later because we're going to make whipped cream to put on top of it, and then we're going to have the berries on it. So let's go ahead and get started with the meringue. Okay, you're going to take your 4 eggs and separate the yolks from the whites. Now, in order to have a successful meringue, whether it's a coconut cream pie, a lemon pie, or a pavlova, you need to make sure that you do not have any yolk in your whites. So I'm going to break them into a separate bowl. That way, if the yolk breaks or if I drop it or whatever, I haven't ruined all of the eggs that I have in the dish. Now, another thing that you want to be aware of is that you don't flush your shells down the garbage disposal. my mother had a 90th year surprise birthday party, and I was making her cake, and I used 40 eggs. No exaggeration, 40 eggs. And I took them over, and I thought, now will my garbage disposal take this many eggshells? And I just shrugged and dumped them in it and ran it through, and it clogged it up tight. So Dan just looked at me like, how could you have done that? But you know, you're so used to running 2 eggshells through at a time or 4 at a time, but don't run 40 through, guys. Okay, now we have your egg whites in here. These were more or less at room temperature. I pulled them out of the refrigerator maybe 10 minutes ago. You do not want it to be ice cold. Now you're going to start out with on a low speed. And then once you start getting a little bit of foam, you're going to increase your speed. And I'm going to increase it again. And I'm just going to go off and leave it and let it work. Now you want this to be soft peaks. You do not want it to be stiff peaks at this stage. Let me clean up some of my mess. Okay, let's get these finished. If you check the mixer and the bowl, you'll see that they are at a soft peak stage. Well, in order for your pavlova or your meringue to set up in order to make a pavlova, it has to be at stiff peaks. So we're going to put this back on and slowly drizzle in the sugar. Do it about a tablespoon at a time and quit. Then when that's mixed in, do another tablespoon at a time and quit. And continue doing this until you have used all of your sugar. Okay. Then you are going to add cornstarch. Now you want to add the cornstarch because if your egg whites start weeping, this will absorb some of the moisture. And it would have probably been best if you simply mix the cornstarch with your sugar. All right, now let's see if we have a stiff peak. Oh, we do. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? All right, let's move this out of the way, and we're going to prepare a pan. Now, the first time I made pavlovas, I put them on aluminum foil like an idiot, and it stuck to it, and I couldn't get them out, and I had to throw them away. So now I use parchment paper. Now, I'm going to take a bowl that's 3 to 4 inches in diameter and put it down and trace it out with a marker. Now these are the sizes that I am going to make the meringues or the pavlova. And because I do not want any of the marker to come out I'm going to turn the paper over because all I need to do is see this for a guide. Okay, let's get this out of the way. And we can throw this in the dishwasher. And here we are. Now, you can see the guide on your paper, but there's no chance of the ink in that marker contaminating the food now. So let's pull this back. Okay, here we go. You ready? Now what you want to do is to get you a heaping spoonful, and we are going to push it down to the circle that we are using as a pattern. Now, if you want to make these larger, there's no reason why you can't use 6 or 8 egg whites. Then I'm going to put a little dollop in the center, mix it in, and then I'm going to dig little holes all the way throughout it, little cavities, for your berries to sit. Okay. So, now once you have this done, you're going to put it in the oven, and you're going to cook it for exactly 1 hour at 300 degrees. You do not want it to be very darkly browned. In fact, you don't want it browned much at all because it's supposed to be a cloud. That was just a little bit too much. And once these are done, and they'll be a light golden brown, we are going to take them, cool them. Then we're going to put a bed of whipped cream on them, hence the heavy whipping cream in the ingredients list. And then we're going to just cover all these little pockets and ridges and whatever with fruit. Then you can even put some more whipped cream on the top if you want, but I think whipped cream as the base is all you need. Now, if you have a young child, say a tween, who's interested in cooking, they would be all about this. And you can use your favorite meringue recipe. It doesn't have to be mine. And I know that when I am making meringue for the coconut cream pies at the end, I always use cream of tartar. And this has never called for cream of tartar in any recipe I could find or use. But of course, I've only found the recipe in very old books. So here we are. So your warnings, do not get egg yolks in it or any kind of fat. It'll break down your whites. Do not put this on aluminum foil because it will not peel off. And if you're allergic to eggs or you have someone who's coming to dinner who may have a sensitivity to them, you're probably much better off not fixing your pavlova. Okay, so we're going to pop these in the oven. Let me straighten that one up a little bit. And we will be ready to bake these little mamas. Okay, and here we go. 1 hour later, they'll be ready. Okay, our hour is up. The alarm has gone off. So let's check on the pavlovas. They should be a real pale golden brown. Let me turn off the timer. Very pretty, very pretty. Now look at that. Isn't that a beautiful bunch of meringues? Now what you're going to do is cover the top of this with a dollop of whipped cream or several dollops, and then you're just going to embed all of your berries on it. When this cools down, we'll try to pick up one to see how it goes. When you cover your food, do not cover them when they're hot. That'll make steam condense and come and hit the surface of whatever it is. This isn't quite ready. Notice it's not touching here or here. So we'll give it another minute or two before we put it in. So in the meantime, let's go ahead and start our macaroni and cheese. All right, the next dish we're going to look at is our macaroni and cheese. Now, the recipe that I have here is a recipe that Donna and I came up with for use at the inn. A lot of times people would want macaroni and cheese, and we didn't have it because it's just so difficult to maintain and to keep it from drying out. So this helps with that situation. All right, now to make the macaroni and cheese, you're going to need a 1-pound box of macaroni, cooked according to the package instructions. Then 4½ tablespoons of butter, 3½ tablespoons of flour, 3/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, 2 1/4 cups of milk. Then your different cheeses that goes inside of the macaroni dish, and then lastly you're going to end it with 1/2 cup of shredded cheddar cheese on the top, and then you may or may not add breadcrumbs. Now this is your regular elbow macaroni. This is your cheese sauce that goes in it, and it stays fairly wet and it will not dry out. And this is just your topping for it. So let's go ahead and get started on this while we're waiting for our oven to heat up to put the rolls in. Now I cooked the elbow macaroni earlier this afternoon, and you can do that, and it can even stay out at room temperature for 2 hours. Now as 2 hours approaches, then you need to start putting it in the refrigerator. Now the secret to this is that you cook your pasta, you drain it, then you wash it in cold water to remove as much of the gluten and the starch as you can. That way it doesn't stick together, and it's one less thing that you do not have to worry about preparing when you're doing your dinner. So let me move this out of the way. Now what we want to do is our cheese sauce. So we have got butter, let me turn that fire down, our flour, and I think these were 4½ tablespoons. Now you do not want this to be brown. What you're doing here is preparing a white sauce, and then you're going to add your cheeses to it. And then it is changing from a white sauce to a cheese sauce. Do you see how thick it is? There are still no powders in it. It is not so stiff that you cannot stir it easily. This, guys, is a perfect roux. All right, now I'm going to put it back on, let it cook a minute longer. And while it's doing that cooking, I am going to put the salt, which is 3/4 of a teaspoon, and the pepper, which is 1/4 of a teaspoon, and put it in here. Whenever possible, I try to put it in the very basic part of our recipe, mixing it good in a little amount, and then when you mix everything else in with it, it's more evenly distributed. At least that's my theory on it. All right, now you've got your milk. I think this was 3½ cups, and we're going to add it slowly and stirring all the time. You do not want lumps in this. And I think I'm going to get a whisk. Now you want to cook this until it just starts simmering and starts thickening. And then at that point, we're going to add our cheeses. Then we're going to put our casserole together. Oh, I nearly had a heart attack. I saw the black flecks of the pepper, and I thought I'd burn it, but I knew I hadn't. Whew, close call. Dan would just rib me about this one for forever. And that was my timer going off, so I'm going to put the rolls in the oven. Do you see how the rolls have raised or risen until they are actually touching each other? That is what you want. So in the oven they go, and this only has to cook for, depending on the strength of your oven, at 350 degrees, and we're going to set our timer for anywhere from 8 to 10 minutes. Depending on the strength of your oven, it may just take 8, or it may take 10. So what I'm going to do, of course, is compromise, and I'm going to set it for 9. Okay, let's find that light bulb. All right, let's get back to our macaroni. We are ready to assemble our macaroni and cheese casserole. And the first thing that we are going to do is put our macaroni in our casserole dish. Now that has been pre-sprayed with a vegetable spray. And when you're fixing a large dinner or a lot of dishes, you can easily fix this macaroni. I've never fixed it the day before, but if you wash it good and layer it out on something and let it dry, then put it in a baggie, I see no reason why it wouldn't work. All right, now here is our macaroni and cheese sauce. Look at that, isn't that just perfect? Now that. Okay. So now what we want to do is mix it in. And because we washed our macaroni, it is not sticking together in large clumps. Look at this, guys. Now we're going to cook this for about a half an hour in the oven. And then we're going to pull it out, and then we're going to put the cheddar cheese topping on it. And at that time, if you want breadcrumbs, that's when you do it. Oh, I love macaroni and cheese. My mouth is watering. All right, so let's put the lid on. And I think I'm going to have to move the rolls. And welcome back. Let's get this chicken in the oven. I'm sure Dan and his guests are going to be starved, and it takes a little bit of time. Excuse my fingers, but I'm not the best person in the world with tongs. Okay, this one's a little bit smaller. Let's put that one up there. And this one's a lot larger. Okay, just squish them together a little bit. Okay, so let me wash my hands. We'll pop those in the oven and again reset the timer. And then we only have one thing left to go. Do you guys remember what it is? It's the broccoli dish. This smells really nice. I think I'll put that in the bottom. Rolls aren't done yet. Okay, so give me a few to clean up my mess. And then we are going to start the broccoli, and we'll see if the meringues are cool enough. And welcome back. We have, in the last part, removed the pavlovas from the oven and let them cool. We put the rolls in, the macaroni and cheese casserole in, and our really pretty, great smelling chicken breasts in. So the last thing we're going to do right now is the sauteed broccoli and almonds, or broccoli almondine. Now for this you need 2 large heads of broccoli, which I cleaned, cut the florets off, threw the stalks away, and then washed them thoroughly again. 6 tablespoons of butter, 2 garlic cloves minced, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1/3 cup of slivered almonds. All right, first thing we're going to do is steam your broccoli florets a little bit. I do not like sauteing them long enough for them to cook throughout, and I hate them being less done than al dente. So I have a pan of boiling water here, so I am going to put it in it, put a lid on it, and let it steam. All right. Then, all right, I have already pan roasted your slivered almonds. So they are ready to go, and they'll be the last things that we do. We have the garlic, the salt, and the butter. So let's get this pan ready. Lots of nice steam going on. And let's melt the butter first. Now I'm going to add the garlic to it. Now remember, garlic burns easy. We're just going to cook this until it's golden brown. What we really want to do is for the garlic to flavor the butter. But just keep in your mind's eye, this will burn easily. I had better turn this down. Okay. All right, I'm going to pull this off of the burner until the broccoli gets a little bit more steamed. Okay, our timer just went off, and I believe the rolls are ready. So let's pull them out. There we are. And let's set the timer. So let's get this done. Boy, this is going to be a hard thing not to eat right now. Okay, and there we are. And since this is a pasta pot, there's a strainer that's built into it. So, and they're a beautiful deep green, just like they're supposed to be. Now at this point, they're cooked close to al dente. So you can now choose whether to continue cooking them until they're well done, or al dente plus. I prefer mine al dente plus. So I'm going to use a turner. And we're going to let these just sort of simmer for a minute or two. Then we will add the almonds. And I think it's time, guys, to make whipped cream. We just pulled our macaroni and cheese casserole out of the oven, so now we are putting the extra cheese all the way across the top. And doesn't this look delicious? I'm going to put the lid on it to hold that in, and I will return it to the oven. So now we have our macaroni and cheese, our rolls, our salads done, our pavlovas, and the broccoli is done. So the last thing we have to do is the whipped cream and measure the temperature on the chicken. So let's do it before we go anywhere else. Now always keep a meat thermometer with you guys. You don't want to guess with meat. If you overcook it, it's dry and not worth eating. If you undercook it, it could be very unhealthy. So let's see what we have here. With chicken, you want it to be somewhere in the area of I always have to check, but I believe it's 180. And this is over 130. So this has at least 15 more minutes to cook, if not longer. Let me check. When you're buying a meat thermometer, buy the one that has the information on the different temperatures on the side of it. Chicken is 180. That's what I thought. All right. The last thing, the very, very final last thing we have to do is the whipped cream to finish off our meringues to make them into the pavlova. So this is 100% pure whipping cream. And I'm going to beat it, and because I haven't washed the bowl and the mixers of the solid mixer, this is going to be noisy, and I apologize. Our whipped cream is done. So let's go ahead and put one of these together. All right, now see how easy that was to peel off of the parchment paper. If we were dealing with foil, it just would not have come off. Now you're going to take some of your whipped cream, and remember I do a whipped cream Cool Whip combination here. One, so I don't have to add sugar to it, and two, where it'll last overnight. And you're going to put that on top of your meringue. All right, now. I have a variety of berries we're going to put on it. We have got blueberries, raspberries, and a couple of strawberries. Now, isn't that just beautiful? I think this could have one more raspberry. Okay, so the last thing that we have to do is to drizzle our caramel. Now, I do make caramel from scratch. I also buy it. If I'm going to buy it, if they have it, I get this brand. It is Dulce de Leche. And when you go to make it, you take a can of evaporated milk, a can of condensed milk, and you boil it for about 2 hours, and this is what you get, and it's absolutely, positively delicious. So let's drizzle some of that on, and then I am going to go visit Dan and his guests. And I'll ask Donna to finish these up for me, and then I will see you in the dining room. But let's just get a little bit of this in here. Okay. Now this is a regular piping bag for frosting or candy, decorations, whatever. All right, let's get a pair of scissors and trim it. Just a very slight trim. So here we go. Dan is going to be so surprised. He hasn't had one of these. I bet you he doesn't even remember having one of these. All right, so we are going to do it this way. Then we are going to do it that way. And ladies and gentlemen, you have one completed berry on a cloud, as we call it. And in Australia, New Zealand, places like that, individual pavlova. Isn't that just beautiful? Okay, you all have a good time. Donna said she doesn't mind taking over for me. I'm going to go say hello to Dan and his guest, and I'll see you in the dining room.
Welcome to Dining with Dan and Becky, and here in Glen Ferris. And tonight I have as my guest Chris. How do I say that last name?
Last name is Burdick.
Burdick.
Yeah.
And he is assistant prosecuting attorney for Fayette County. He's a young attorney out of Morgantown area. He just graduated a few years ago and has been out here trying cases and learning to be a prosecutor. And so he's gotten a job here in Fayette County, and we're just very thankful we have such a talented young man here to be a new assistant prosecuting attorney for Larry Hara in Fayette County. And Chris, tell us a little bit about you, where you lived and all that.
Yeah, I grew up in Fairmont, and I went to West Virginia Wesleyan for undergrad, and after undergrad, went to WU Law School, graduated, started working as a public defender in Weirton, up in the Northern Panhandle, and then was offered a job here in Fayette County by Mr. Hara, and I started at the beginning of the new year, and I'm excited to start working and learning and meeting people here in the county. So.
Well, that's great. Okay, well, let's go in the kitchen and see what Becky has made up for us. We got all these salads and stuff here, and we're going to go in there and see what she's made up for us.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what she has prepared.
Yeah, okay. Well, Becky, what have you made for us this evening?
Okay, I fixed the salad.
Okay,
Chicken delicious.
chicken delicious. Well, most chicken is delicious. I mean, what
Well-
makes it different than any other type chicken?
Well, instead of sauteing it or frying it in oil or baking it, you marinated it in a tangy dressing with onions and beef bouillon of all things.
Okay, well,
I had to think a minute.
okay, well, that's a little
Smells
bit different
good.
than what I've had before. Okay, what else we having?
And then we're having sauteed broccoli with almonds.
Okay.
And I called it that so you couldn't tease me about broccoli almondine.
Oh, it's not a broccoli almondine? Or is it a almondine?
It's an almondine, but
Okay, so it's a broccoli
sauteed broccoli with almonds.
almondine. With almonds, okay. All right, what else we got?
You're going to be having a pavlova. That is what they call it in Europe and Australia, and that's what I was introduced to because of Amy. Our youngest daughter, Amy, was an exchange student to Australia.
Okay,
And
so
here it's just called berries on a cloud.
berries on a cloud. Okay, all right. Well, we'll have to see that in order to understand what that is.
Okay,
All right, so what else we having now? Is this it?
that's it then.
How about our rolls? You made
Oh,
fresh rolls?
Yes, I did make fresh rolls.
Okay, all right.
I'm going to buy them from the inn next week.
Are you? Okay. All right, well, let's start on our salad, and we'll get going here and let the producer eat his salad before he starves to death.
Well, I like these little salads with all these vegetables in here.
It's very good.
It is. I used to run a lot when I was in the Marine Corps. Of course, we learned to run a lot. And after I got out and was in business and teaching school or whatever, we did a lot of running to try to stay in shape. But Becky kept feeding me these big meals, and I kept getting bigger, so I had to exercise more.
So I need to go for a run after this.
Welcome back. Well, Becky, what do we got here now? We've got chicken.
Chicken delicious.
Chicken delicious, okay. Now, we're going to try that first, and then we're going to go round the clock.
And this is dipping sauce
Dipping sauce,
for
okay,
your chicken.
okay, okay. Well, it looks like it's cutting tender, so should be pretty
Well,
good.
I cooked it to exactly 180.
Okay. All right, that's exactly what it's supposed to be. Let's try it here. Chris, try to get a taste of it. The chicken's very good, Becky.
Is it very
It's
good?
got a good taste.
Well, next time I'll do twice as much sauce and put it on it twice.
And what's in the dipping sauce?
Catalina dressing, dehydrated onions, and beef bouillon.
It's very good.
It's very good, very tasty.
It's very different. They said it was delicious.
It is.
I found this in a real old cookbook, Chris. All of these cookbooks behind you have either been given to me or I found at secondhand shops.
Are there any of your own cookbooks back there?
Yeah, I've got 4.
Well, the macaroni and cheese is pretty good too.
I like it a little wetter, but this is how it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. Looks like Mother used to make.
I know.
I don't like that real bitter cheese. This is a kind of a mild cheese too. What type of cheese is it?
This is mild cheddar and Monterey Jack and Colby all mixed together.
That's very good.
Well, thank you.
The Almonds pretty good too.
Well, I haven't tasted it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is 2 or 3 almondines that you've had.
I know. It's pretty good. Well, Chris, while you've got your mouth full, tell us what all you're doing up there in the prosecuting office. Are you getting your feet on the ground?
Yeah, I've been thrown in the deep end, but
Oh, okay.
yeah, but I actually was hired. I will be the full-time prosecuting attorney for magistrate court. Magistrate court being the lower court,
Right.
handles misdemeanor cases, handles preliminary hearings, so I'll be doing that. I'll also be doing juvenile cases and helping with that. And so hopefully,
Very good. That'll
working
get
with
your
all-
feet on the ground and
Mhm.
get to know the community and get to know the local people.
and hopefully with Mr. Harris' permission, I'll move up and start
Sure.
getting bigger cases and proving my worth.
They might even pay you.
I think it was actually chicken delicious.
Okay, well, great, great.
Well, that's what they called it.
At least you get a home cooked meal
Ah, yeah, it was-
tonight, so you'll be better off. And Becky's just about ready to service our dessert here. Well, what do we got to have for dessert?
We're having berries on a cloud
Okay,
in the United States.
okay. Now, what all does it have, and how did you make it?
All right, I made the base out of meringue.
Okay,
I made a little meringue circle with a little tower and dips and things in it. And then I made whipped cream and put that on it. And then various berries and then caramel syrup.
I see.
And the caramel syrup is a dulce de leche.
Okay, well, I think Charlie's wanting some of it. Our pet dog is over here wanting part of the dessert. No, I think he wants chicken.
I think he wants Tommy's chicken.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
he heard it's delicious. That's why.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
All
Well,
right.
let's have
Well,
our
let me
dessert.
have these plates.
Okay.
You didn't eat much of your roll.
Well, I ate half of it. That's all I
Chris, are
can
you
eat.
through?
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, Becky, let's try to taste this, okay?
All right, now the bottom of it's meringue, just like the meringue on a coconut cream pie,
Really?
just baked a little bit more firm.
Okay. That's unusual.
Mm-hmm.
It's sweet too.
Yes, the recipe calls for a cup of sugar, whereas with coconut cream pie, I only use half a cup.
I have a little tough time cutting mine, unfortunately.
Yeah. You might have to use a knife.
I just broke down and used a knife.
I cut mine in my strawberry in half.
Boy, that is just too sweet to eat.
I like it.
Well, you'll probably never find another pavlova anywhere in the U.S.
That's probably
except
true.
for me.
Is this dietary? No. So you're
There
trying.
is no sugar in the whipped cream.
Okay, that's the only thing that's no sugar in. The what do you call this again? Meringue?
Meringue.
Meringue, does it have sugar in it? Because it's pretty
Yeah.
sweet.
It's
Okay.
got a whole cup.
You're gonna
six-
fatten Chris up here. He's gonna,
I'm sorry, Chris. 16 tablespoons are in a cup, and each teaspoon has 16 calories. So a tablespoon has 3 teaspoons, so a tablespoon has 48 calories.
I
Okay.
just-
So out of 1 cup of sugar, I got 8 pavlovas.
Okay.
So that means there's 2 tablespoons each. So it is 96 calories in sugar just in the meringue.
Okay. Well, everything's very tasty. There's raspberries on it and blueberries.
They're
both
healthy.
Very good. They're healthy, that's right. I'm gonna pretend this is a healthy, and then we'll have to run around the house here.
I think it goes well with the strawberries, the caramel.
It's just there's so much of it. Woo. It's a big dessert for me.
No, not for me.
Well, Becky, you've done it again. You've made another great meal for me and my guest, and we really appreciate it. Did you like it all right?
I enjoyed it. It was delicious, and
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for having me.
Well, you're welcome. We'll have you again.
Yeah, you can come down anytime. We're here most of the time.
Yeah, we generally do this on Tuesdays, but every now and then it's on a Wednesday.
Thank you for watching Dining with Dan and Becky at Glen Ferris, and we appreciate you watching. Thank you.
Bye. See you next
you
time.
next
See you.